The internet is largely a den of noise, especially when it comes to political commentary and so-called influencers on the internet. And yet there are a few voices that I think are worthwhile listening to and who generally have okay analysis. Scot Adams is one of those voices. He is one of the few commentators that I actually listen to on a daily basis, or at least try to. And I generally consider his commentary to be above the par than most of the influencers out there on the internet today. However, Scot Adams, who is also the creator of Dilbert, the famous comic strip series that has been seen by millions around America, recently made a comment that was not only concerning, but it was deeply irrational. And in response to criticism of the comment, he has pretended as if he had no idea that he made it or that he didn't make it whatsoever. So, just to ensure that nothing is being taken out of context, I'm going to play a clip from a live show that he did not too long ago in which he talks about a poll done by Rasmussen Reports, which shows 26% of Black Americans, or rather people who were polled, get that in a second, saying it's not okay to be white. Let's play this clip, and I'll be right back.
So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away. Wherever you have to go, just get away. Because there's no fixing this. This can't be fixed. Right? This can't be fixed. You just have to escape. So that's what I did. I went to a neighborhood where, I have a very low black population. Because unfortunately, there's a high correlation between the density. And this is according to Don Lemon, by the way. So here I'm just quoting Don Lemon when he notes that when he lived in a mostly black neighborhood, there were a bunch of problems that he didn't see in white neighborhoods. So even Don Lemon sees a big difference in your own quality of living based on where you live and who's there. So I think it makes no sense whatsoever as a white citizen of America to try to help black citizens anymore. It doesn't make sense. It's no longer a rational impulse. And so I'm gonna back off from being helpful to black America because it doesn't seem like it pays off.
Okay, so as you all saw there, Mr. Adams proposed a solution to the phenomenon observed by Rasmussen, basically saying, abandon black people, don't be near black people if you are white. He is essentially proposing a new era of intentional racial segregation. Now, this video is not really even about Scot Adams. Scot Adams, like every other human being, is merely an emissary for broader ideas. This video is about a few things. Number one, and this is what I'm interested in as a student of philosophy. Why do people believe what they believe? In what ways do people believe what they believe? And how can you, as a truth seeker, as someone who wants to understand what's really going on, avoid the pitfalls of flawed beliefs? Calling Mr. Adams' statement a flawed belief is actually an understatement. I think that it is profoundly anti-human, profoundly irrational, and rather simple-minded. But having said that, there is a reason for why he believes what he believes. Before I address the actual claim, let's address the poll that Mr. Adams talked about. So Rasmussen Reports released a poll not too long ago, and the poll basically was a public opinion poll, wanted to assess the temperature of black Americans and general Americans, all Americans, on issues of race. And the poll asked the following question: black Americans only, it's okay to be white. 53% said they agree, and 26% of black Americans said they disagree, and 21% said not sure. Now, another part of that same poll that Mr. Adams did not talk about was the part that asked, black people can be racist too. 76% of African Americans agree. Roughly the same percentage of African Americans who don't think it's okay to be white disagreed, 27%, and 8% said not sure. Now, before we even talk about the poll, it's important to understand the efficacy, or the lack thereof, of public opinion polling. Public opinion polling has problems. It has had problems for the past few decades. In fact, most notoriously in recent times, public opinion polling was significantly undermined during the 2016 presidential election, when Donald Trump happened to blow the lid off of almost all of the pollsters' predictions. Many of you may remember that the pollsters 100% believed that Hillary Clinton was going to be the next president of the United States. It didn't happen, and so the polling industry had to reassess where they went wrong. Now, this is not to say that polling itself is not reliable. It can be reliable in particular cases, but there are significant problems with the way pollsters have conducted polling that actually make it a less than reliable source to understand public opinion. One example, in statistics, there's a phenomenon called a non-response bias. Particularly, pollsters will go to particular people, whether they call them or do it over the internet, and those people may only be a particular demographic of people who don't represent other folks in a similar demographic. This is called the non-response bias, and response to polls have gone down from something like 30% over the past few decades to like 9%. The response to polls, according to Pew Research, has declined significantly. So with less people responding to polling, you get a more slanted and narrow view. Therefore, you can have 26% of people who are polled say something crazy, but how are you sure that is reflective of that entire demographic? Plus, by mere proportion, polling is not reflective of an entire group of people. It is reflective of the people who are polled. If you were to, I say, sample a group of black conservatives or black Republicans, I'm pretty sure most of them would respond to the question, is it okay to be right? Affirmatively. But again, it's all about who you sample. And yet, despite these outstanding statistical facts, despite these problems of measurement and epistemology, which are endemic to the institution of polling, Mr. Adams took the poll at face value without any critical analysis and used it to make a value judgment. What Mr. Adams did was something I call reasoning by means of averages, or reasoning by means of blind statistics. So, for example, statistics are meant to be a way for us to measure certain phenomenon in the world, whether it be activity, crime statistics, whether it be viewpoints, whether it be behavior, whatever it might be. It is a way for us to measure, a tool of empiricism for us to measure and understand the world better. However, it is merely a tool. Statistics are not the beginning and end of knowledge. Statistics are the beginning of further exploration. You do not take a statistic and simply say, okay, the stat says this, therefore that's what it is. No, you have to investigate the statistic. You have to look into it, see how it was sampled, how it was collected, who's funding the study in which the stat was taken, and then use your powers of deduction to see if it all makes sense. There are so many things that go into creating statistics that it becomes almost a duty for the thinking man to actually study what he's looking at. Scot Adams did not do this. But the thing is, it's not just a Scot Adams problem. This problem of a lack of epistemological rigor is endemic to contemporary political conversations. Many of you know folks who want to own the libs or whatever, who will cite a study and not even explain the study in detail and just take it at face value. If you want to convince people, if you want to be right, if you want to connect to the truth, you must be willing to put on your thinking cap and do some hard reasoning. And the problem is, folks like Mr. Adams don't do that. Because guess what? Thinking is difficult. Now, the problems of polling and blindly trusting statistics have been established. Do not misinterpret my analysis to mean that we should never use stats. Of course we should. Or that we should never trust polling. Of course we should. But do it with a critical thinking cap on. But the broader problem here is the fact that let's assume that there were not these problems. Let's assume that what Mr. Adams said had some merit to it. Let's assume. I don't think it does. Let's assume it, though. How in the world are you going to be able to assume that a fringe minority of a particular statistic represents a majority or a plurality of an entire group of people. Mr. Adams in his clip said that all white folks should avoid all black folks and that he is done helping black people. That is a non sequitur. That does not follow from the premises of a study like this. That is an attempt, that is an emotional knee-jerk reaction born of primitive feeling. It is not born of any kind of higher thought. It is not born of any kind of rationality. And that's why I called it anti-human. Because human beings, my friend, man is a creature of reason, a creature of higher order thinking. The only reason why we are the only creature on this planet to have civilization is because we were able to transcend instinct, which all of our animal cousins, whether it be cats, lions, or whatever, are bound by instinct. We were able to transcend their limitations and use our minds to convert nature into tools for our survival and perpetuation. The moment man stops using his rationality and caters to his base instinct and emotional reactions with no limitations is the moment man becomes little more than an indistinguishable animal. He becomes little more than his animal ancestors. He is rejecting his humanity. So in a sense, Scot Adams' claim here is anti-human because it relies on you not using the capacity of your human being to understand a given issue. How is this celebrated? How is this praised? And yet on Twitter and on his own, on the video, which I'll link below, on the video where he says this, there are droves of people saying, so Scot Adams is correct. It's okay to be white. All these different things. And the people who are saying all of these things are reflective of the same phenomenon, of the same problem. Listen, there is an antagonism towards Caucasians in the West. This antagonism has been institutionalized. It has been propagandized through entertainment, through universities, through government laws, through so-called diversity programs, which measure the value of people on the basis of how they look and on the basis of their activities as opposed to the basis of their character. There are all kind of anti-Western ideals born from a postmodern frame that are infecting our institutions, that are infecting our society, and degrading certain groups of people, especially Caucasians. That is not a bad thing to admit or to acknowledge. But it is a mistake to assume that those mentalities are prevalent amongst a majority of any given population, as evidenced by the poll that Mr. Adams cited. 76% of those polled, black Americans, say that blacks can be racist as well. That goes against the orthodoxy. That goes against the woke idea that black folks can't be racist because they don't have any power, allegedly. So even in the poll that he's using to denigrate black folks, you have a rejection of the mentality that Adams is angry about. This lack of self-awareness is amazing. So just because these things are happening does not mean most people in the West are on board with this. This is a vocal minority that have overtaken our institutions, that have overtaken some very important cultural areas, and are using those as a weapon against certain people, and that should be rejected on the basis of individualism. That should be rejected on the basis of objective truth, on the basis of rationality, on the basis of every single thing that these mentalities don't want to survive. It is an inappropriate response to collectivism to endorse a different kind of collectivism. It is an inappropriate response to someone denigrating your race, something you had no control over, to then therefore say, well, I'm going to denigrate you because of your race. I'm going to therefore judge you because of your race. Fire does not put out fire, it causes a conflagration, and it burns everything in its environment to the ground. Mentalities like this burn down what is proper and what is true, and replace it for what makes us feel angered and passionate. That's the problem. Racial collectivism should be rejected just as fiercely and as thoroughly and as resolutely as other racial ideas that may denigrate you or attack you because of the color of your skin. Whether you be white, black, Asian, wherever. All of it comes from the same family. They are cousins, daughters, sons of the same exact family. And they should all be rejected. Also, a quick word on this. The statement, "it's okay to be white," is a statement built on false premises because that statement presupposes that some kind of value, some kind of moral value can be assigned to skin color. But that is a category error, as we would say in philosophy. Moral value and skin color are two separate categories. They are two distinct things that do not mix, like oil and water do not mix. One's skin color is not descriptive. One's skin color tells you nothing substantive about their humanity or about their character. But one's value is descriptive and does say something substantive about their humanity and about their character. But to try to mix the two just muddles the concepts altogether and gives you a very confused depiction of the person. So that question itself on the basis should not be used to get any answers from people. It should not be used to measure public opinion because all those opinions are being directed on the basis of a false premise. Reject collectivist questions like that so we can actually understand the nature of things and not be so confused and tangled up in our emotions about these sensitive topics. We have a problem of thinking in our culture, my friends. We have a problem of understanding phenomena for what they are, not in terms of what we wish they were or our biases. And we have a problem of uncritically using the tools of empiricism that are meant to help us understand the world better, to obscure and cloud the true nature of things. This Scot Adams situation should tell us that this business of thinking, of investigating, of understanding is not easy. The easiest thing for you to do is to let your emotions guide you, let your passions overtake your mind, and to default to a base assumption that upon further scrutiny falls apart like a house of cards. That's the easiest thing to do. But the right thing to do, the hard thing to do, is to embrace your inner humanity, to look at things critically, to not misuse statistics on the basis of your initial reaction, to pace yourself, and to understand the nuanced, dynamic components of social phenomenon and other issues. The latter approach will lead you to have a richer view of the world and to appreciate the objective truth, which is what the left generally does not do. But the former view makes you no different than the racists, than the collectivists, and the people who would attack you for something you have no control over. You have control over whether you think or not. And I advise that you use that control wisely. Mr. Adams, no offense to you, this is not a drama video, but your analysis in this respect is irrational, it is anti-human, and I pray that you change your ways. My friends, I love you guys so much. If you love me, patreon.com/officialcwatson, PayPal, which is going to be officialcwatson@gmail.com. Be sure to comment on this video, like this video, subscribe to this channel, share this video. My friends, I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.